Welcome to the Wednesday night meeting of the recovery rooms. My name is Lucky and I'm a grateful recovered addict. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any newcomers or visitors from outside the area. This is a non-smoking and non-vaping venue. Can I now ask everyone put their phones onto silent and not use them during the meeting? For anyone who doesn't know, the toilets are just through the double doors, first right down the bottom. The only requirement for any person to attend this meeting is to have a desire to stop using alcohol and all other mind-altering substances, including all other troublesome addictions. The recovery room safeguarding policy, which everyone must adhere to, is that this meeting is a safe place for everyone and there's a zero tolerance for harassment, any form of discrimination or predatory behaviour. Anyone who breaks this policy is not permitted to attend the meeting until they change their behaviour. The recovery rooms has only one sole purpose: to help alcoholics and addicts recover from their disease of addiction. The recovery rooms has its primary piece of literature, which is this one, the recovery rooms, and there's a guide to recovery inside. And it's a 10-point plan of action on how to recover one day at a time. A lot of people in the recovery rooms have decided to go through the 10-point plan with a sponsor who is simply an addict who is clean and sober and has been through the work themselves. The suggested action plan of recovery is based on the spiritual solution to the disease of addiction. The recovery rooms has no opinion on outside issues. We do not wish to engage in any controversy and we neither endorse nor oppose any causes. This is a speaker meeting. Each week we have a different speaker come along, invited to come along, share their experience, strength and over us for about 20-25 minutes. And this week Dan has kindly come along to share with us. So I'll hand over to you, Dan. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Lucky.
My name's Dan, I'm an addict.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Good to be here tonight. And extremely grateful to be clean and sober. I know some people don't like it, starting with what's your day been like? But I've had a funny old time the last couple of days. My uncle died last night. My mum's brother, and my mum died 4 months ago, and had a really complicated relationship with my uncle. We used to live with each other in Chelsea, and there was a lot of alcohol involved, a lot of drug taking, and it was very much a love-hate relationship where we'd speak and then not speak for years, and then we'd speak again, and it caused lots of grief between my mum and him, and it was a real weird dynamics. And but he passed away yesterday, and the longer I've been in this program, the more and more I realise that sobriety, in the way I see it, is a gift. It isn't something you have to do anything for, it's something that's given to you. And I always find it funny when we applaud the speakers at the end of our meetings, because what you're really applauding is a gift that you've done nothing for. And how you can applaud a gift, I don't know. My recovery now isn't based on, the amount of people I help, the amount of meetings I go to, the amount of literature I read, because I've overindulged in all of that stuff. And, I've got worse in my recovery sometimes with it, sponsoring too many people, trying to help too many people. It's all about, helping the newcomer, and, and that's caused friction in my home life in the past, where I was just so out of balance. Even in recovery, stop the drinking and drugs, my life still can become out of balance in recovery, because I'm, got these disciplines that I feel that I should be doing, but I've also, gained stuff now I'm in recovery, family and children, and finding that balance can be really, really hard for me. How it is for other people, I don't know, but so it's a gift. It's a gift that I haven't thought about drinking and using, when I get emotionally disturbed anymore. It isn't the first thing that comes into my mind. I don't need to change the way I feel when I'm feeling discomfort or pain. And over the last, as I said, over the last 4.5 months, it's been a really, really tough time. And, But not once have I thought that picking up would be a good idea. It's just not entered my mind anymore. You know, what has entered my mind is that this is a program of honesty, and that it doesn't really matter how many years I've been in recovery, that I know it's based on honesty in God, and that I'm honest with people about the way I am. You know, I don't have any hang-ups no more about, you know, being over 10 years clean and sober and bringing up someone who's 2 years clean and sober and telling them I'm having a really shit time. That doesn't bother me anymore. My ego wouldn't have wanted me to do that when I was 5 years clean and sober. I would have thought, no, you know, you can't tell anyone with less time than you, you're not doing well. And that made me sick. And but how did I get here? You know, I've just like everyone else, really, you know, before I put a drinking and drug in me, I felt discomfort, dis-ease was the way I ran from the age of 2-3 years old until I can remember getting to secondary school and the first time I took drinking drugs. I was just uncomfortable within my own skin, you know, so self-absorbed, self-obsessed, and just running on fear. You know, my dad, he wasn't an alcoholic, but he drank, and when he drank whiskey, and when he drank whiskey, he got aggressive and violent, and there was forever dinner plates going up walls and stuff like that. And my mum and dad, they owned a pub and a restaurant, and you know, and then nothing would happen for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden he'd be drinking again, and it would all go off. And I was about 7 years old, and I can remember going into the kitchen, and my dad had my mum by the hair, and she was on the floor, and he was tipping a bottle of vodka over her face and screaming at her. And I started running around the kitchen, crying, kicking all the cupboards, screaming for him to stop. And it stopped him dead in his tracks. And we talk about living by new principles when we're in recovery, and unbeknown to me, I learned a principle within that moment that if I'm aggressive towards others, that usually I get my own way. And from the age of 6 years old until I was 28, when I ended up in a detox, most of my life was filled with manipulation to try to get people to act in ways that I wanted them to act, to make me feel good, and the majority of the time I would be aggressive to get it. And that's how I behaved in all areas of my life. Even with friends, I would be aggressive. I would try to intimidate people because I always needed this sense of comfort and ease to be okay within my own skin, and it had to be given to me by how everybody else was behaving. And I don't have to live like that anymore. That the most freeing part of this program is that I don't need you to be or act any way to make me feel comfortable anymore. And that's been the amazing thing. That's been the gift that this recovery program has allowed me to gain access to, that you don't have to be or do or say anything to me anymore for me to be okay within my own skin. I got to, secondary school, and, I'm just full of fear, as I say, and I'm too scared to put my hand up in lessons, because I don't want the focus to be on me, to ask for help. So I'm sitting at the back of classes, I'm being disruptive, I'm not really understanding what's going on, and I'm too frightened to ask for help because I don't want to make myself look stupid in front of other people. So I'm going through school, I'm not really learning anything, I'm trying to cover all that up by being in lessons, I'm covering it up by being mischievous and trying to be funny and being disruptive, because I don't really want to tell you I'm really crumbling inside. I'm full of fear, I don't really know what's going on in lessons. I'm feeling a lot thicker than everybody else. Please help me. I never knew them words. Please, can I have some help? And as I say again, this recovery journey has taught me that it's okay to ask for help. It's like just one of the most freeing things to be able to go and say to someone, listen, I'm struggling with this, can you help me? Just simple things that I never, so wrapped up in torment internally because I couldn't do that because I was too scared. So I keep disrupting and, being disruptive in lessons, larking around, and I think it was about 12 years old, and this boy, he's brought in a bottle of Bell's whiskey that he's nicked out of his dad's drink cabinet. And another kid's come in with some skunk weed that he's nicked off his older brother. And like where everybody should start, behind the bike sheds, we rolled a pathetic joint that looked like a Tampax, and you know, we got this bottle of Bell's whiskey and everybody's necking it, and we're smoking this, everything's falling out of it, and just like, you know, tragic, really tragic. But you know, 20 minutes later, I feel completely different. That boy who was so scared and feeling so disconnected to other people, and, you know, really like, you know, so fearful inside about what people were thinking, I just really didn't care anymore. Suddenly I found, you know, in some of our literature, it talks about the elixir for life, and that's what it was, man. You give me alcohol and drugs, it takes me to a completely different level of consciousness that I feel well okay. And I chased that until I was 28 years old. And I had no power not to chase it. By the time I'm 14, I get kicked out of school. You know, the drinking and the drug taking, it continues and it gets worse and worse and worse. And in the end, they kick me out and I get sent to a naughty boys' school. And for once, I sort of feel okay. I'm around other people, a bit like I feel okay in here with you lot. It was a bit like, well, you know, looking back, these group of other naughty boys are probably going to wind up addicts like me. And, you know, I could sort of sense that we was on some common ground. And I sort of, the behaviour calmed down, and I was there for a year. And then I was straight out of there working on building sites and stuff like that, and playing football with older men, and drinking with older men. And, you know, it was just, I loved it. You know, the noise of a boozer, of a pub. Even now, if I walk past the pub in the wintertime, it's all lovely and glowing. You can hear the glasses and the chat. It's like there's something really, really appealing about that. And it was then, and, you know, and then, you know, you're meeting women, and I'm a kid, and it's just like fantastic. But every single time I drank and used, I did not stop on that night. It would always go into the next day. Even from a young age, you know, that first time I drank at school with the Bell's whiskey, I ended up with alcohol poisoning, and I got sent home from school, and I was throwing up, and I had, you know, diarrhea. It was just vile. And I can remember in 2 days, my mum was saying, you know, you've got to go back to school now. I'm saying, no, I'm too ill. She said, I'm telling you, you've got to go back to school. And I went back to school, and I got off my bus, and the other boy got off of his bus who'd brought in the whiskey, and he looked at me, he said, how are you? And I said, oh, mate, honestly, I've been so rough. And we sort of just looked at each other, and he got where I was coming from, but we smiled and was like, should we do it again? And that was how it was. And from that moment, you know, we would be up Freshers. There used to be an off-licence called Freshers. And we'd stand at the side of the door, and you could see the woman who worked behind the counter through the reflection of the other window. And as soon as she went out the back, we shot in, door flew open, run in, grabbed cases of lager and run out. And it was just like fun. It was just so much fun. But I never drunk just a few drinks. Like my brother, he's like the most strangest fella you're ever going to meet. He can go into a pub and, like, we lived with each other for a little while, and we'd go to a pub Wednesday night and have a couple of pints, and it'd get to 8:30, 9 o'clock, and he'd go, right, Dan, I'm go back now, work in the morning. And I'd think, fucking, what do you mean you're going back? Got work in the morning. And what I realise now, booze doesn't do to him what it does to me, you know. I take a pint or two of lager, and I get this feeling that the night's young, and there's going to be a party somewhere, or something magical is going to happen. Or I'm going to meet Angelina Jolie somewhere, and it's all just going to be so good. And never. It happens. End up in police stations with blood down me, not knowing what's going on, and you know, or in hospitals, or in random people's flats, on random people's sofas, or getting knocked out because I'm trying to pull somebody's wife, and it always end up in some tragic situation. And like I've heard many times in this room, you know, it was never my fault. It was the fella was too violent, and you know, and his wife shouldn't have told him that I tried it on with her, or you know, it was I shouldn't have hung around with that person. I shouldn't have gone to that nightclub. It was just never my fault. All the carnage that come along with my drinking, and you know, and it was quite fun. And we talk about this, you know, I take a drink and the drink takes me. And I can remember my mum, she had to keep me at arm's length in the end for her own well-being. You know, that lady, I completely trashed her nervous system like no other, you know. And I've shared in these meetings before that she would have to unplug the phone at night because she'd be scared she'd get a phone call to say that I'd been found dead somewhere, or, you know, I'd killed someone or something. And totally trashed her. And this time I had some not very nice people wanted to speak to me, and I had to get out of where I was living. And I called her up and I begged her. I said, I promise you, if you lend me some money to move to Leytonstone so I can get away from these people, I promise you I would change my life, get my life changed. And she said, okay, then she gave me the money. I went into this house share. I paid a month's deposit and a month up front in rent. And I thought, right, I'm going to go and get myself a job, new area, clean slate. And I walked up to the high street. I walked in the job centre, and I don't know whether they still do it now, but used to print out jobs, and they come out like a big long receipt, and it would have the name of the company, this. I was in there about 45 minutes, got these 5 jobs, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to sort my life. And I walked out of that job centre, and I took 2 paces, and there was a pub, and my body just went straight into that pub. And 2.5 days later, I woke up on an aeroplane that landed in Malaga. Welcome to Malaga Airport. And I looked around and I thought, what the fuck am I doing here? I went into the airport and all my stuff's coming through in bin liners that is all ripped open. I'm thinking, fuck, what is going on? How have I wound up in Spain? And I had about 130 quid in my pocket, and she'd give me 1,700 quid 2 days before. And the Irish boy, he called me up. He was part of this house share. And I was like, mate, what's going on? He said, you're a fucking nightmare, mate. He said, you know, do not ever come back to this house ever again. He said, you're not welcome. I was like, mate, please tell me what's happened. He said, you come back pissed, you've caused rows, you've tried to have a fight with me, we've given you money, all your stuff in bin line, fuck off. And I end up at Stansted Airport somehow and get this plane. And then I called my dad up. I said, look, I'm in Spain. He was just like, what the fuck is going on? And I didn't even have enough to fly home that day. They had to transfer me some money. I flew home that day. And my dad, he'd pulled some faces at me in the past, but, you know, used to get so cross with me. But this day, he met me at Gatwick Airport, and I come out of the airport, and he just looked at me and just shook his head with this smile as if to say, I just don't know anymore. I really just do not know. And, you know, it went on for a few more years. I kept getting pushed further and further and further away from the people who loved me because they just couldn't see what I was, couldn't have me around them anymore. And I was in Hastings the last 4 days of my drinking. I don't really recall how I got there, but I was in the same clothes for them 4 days, going around different flats, taking different drugs and drinking whatever I could out of fucking tins of lager with cigarette butts in them, you know, anything, wherever I was to have a drink. And I woke up on this morning and I had about 8 quid in my pocket, and there used to be a pub called the Adelaide in Hastings Old Town, and it was a fisherman's pub, and you could 24/7, when they come off the boats, they could go in and get a drink, and you could get anything in there, alcohol, drugs. You could order, the smackheads would come in, you could order yourself some diesel jeans, they'd shoot down into Hastings for you and steal them, give them 15 quid, and I used to love all that stuff. And anyway, I went into this pub, and And I ordered a pint of lager, and he gave me the pint of lager, and I went to take the drink, and I burst into tears. And I couldn't drink it. And the only way I can explain it to you is that my whole life flashed through my mind within seconds, and I saw exactly what I'd become and what I'd done to everybody around me. It was the first, I've never, it just, my whole life went through my mind within seconds, and I realised exactly what I'd become. And for years, people have said, Dan, why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep doing that? And I'd say, I don't know why I keep doing this. And in that moment, I knew that the why I kept doing it was because I needed help and I wasn't getting help. And I made a phone call to my mum, and, you know, I'd trashed her for years and years and years for money. I mean, some of this stuff's funny, but some of it's really not. You know, I'd demanded money from my mum, wouldn't leave her house until she give it to me, and she wouldn't give it to me, and I smashed up her kitchen and all that kind of stuff because she wouldn't give me money because I needed it for alcohol and drugs. And I called her up, and she said, get a cab. And I got a taxi to her house, and I fell into her arms, and I don't remember much after that until the next day when she was over me with a phone and said, I can get you into a detox, will you go? And I just said, yeah. And that's where my recovery started. And I got to this detox, and I knew nothing about anything. You know, I was just emotionally, completely and utterly fried. You know, I was good. Some fella was having his leaving thing, and I was crying. I didn't even know him, and you know, like, it was just. And no meetings in there. They, you know, not like some of these lovely rehabs and stuff that I hear other people going to. You know, where they sound more like spas than like in detoxes or treatment centres. This place stunk, and everybody else stunk in there, and I stunk, and we all stunk, and you know, like honestly, the fucking amount of coffee that everybody was drinking and sugar, and the chef there, he'd making gatos, and they'd be ploughed through within about half hour, and just madness. And when I left there, they gave me a flyer to the meetings, and I went to my first meeting, and they was reading the literature, and somebody spoke about God. And I looked at everyone and with fucking hatred, I thought, what the fuck is this that I've come into? God. What on earth has this got to do with stopping drinking and using? And I never went back for 3 months. I attended this day program, and there was people who used to go to the rooms there, and I'd belittle them and mock them and say about how crap the meetings are and stuff like that. And I got to about 3 months sobriety, I think they call it. And I was eating lots of protein, lots of chicken, going to the gym 3 times a day, sunbeds, spending my dull money on new trainers and thinking I really had it all together and chasing women and stuff like that. And my family all going to me, you look really well, come on, keep it up. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm doing really well. And then one morning I woke up stone cold sober, and I felt like the 6-year-old boy was running around that kitchen kicking the cupboards. I was full of fear. Our literature speaks about the 4 horsemen of terror, bewilderment, frustration and despair, and I could have added a few more to that. I was laying in bed in the fetal position, just petrified, shaking, and not knowing why. And I hadn't been near a drug or a drink in months. And when I felt like that, you know, the only thing that I used to know how to do was to change the way I feel. And I drove to a pub, and as I got out the pub, my phone rang, and it was a boy from one of these meetings. And he said to me, Dan, what are you doing? And I said, I was honest. I said, I'm going to go and have a drink, mate. He said, don't do that. Whatever you do, do not go and pick up that drink. He said, come to one of the meetings. And I said, I don't want to go to your fucking meetings and listen to people speak about God. It was as simple as that. He said, no, please. He said, take no notice of that. Just come back to the meetings. Come to a meeting with me. And he persuaded me to go to a meeting with him that night, and I went, and some fella done the chair who told everybody that he was the best cheese and bacon thief in Bromley. He'd been to prison 15, 18 times, he'd murdered cats, he'd done this, he'd done that, and I thought, what the fuck? I don't even want to hear your stories, let alone the God thing. And after the meeting, I said I'd never go back again. And he went, no, please, just come back to one more meeting. And I came to these rooms, and a lady done a share, and she done my chair, but she was telling her own story. She talked about dropping her kids at her mum's in Bromley, and she'd go out drinking up the West End for the night, and 3 days later waking up in Wales. And I thought, fucking hell, that happens to me. I go to job centres and I end up on planes and wake up in Spain, you know. And she talked about, you know, the way she'd let people down, and she would make all these promises, and she really meant that she was never going to do this stuff again. And she said, and she'd find herself not even thinking about doing it, just she would find her body using, drinking. And I'd think, shit, that happens to me all the time. That is what happens to me. And I identified with her. And after the meeting, I said to her, you know, what do I do? And she said, you need to get yourself a sponsor. And I did. And at the time, this man, I don't say this for any sort of, you know, this man was nearly 50 years sober at the time. He was old and crusty, and, you know, like skin would drop off of him as you were sitting next to him in the meeting. He was that old. And he became my sponsor. And I would go round to his house once a week, and we'd go through the book there on the table. It's been no chore really coming to these rooms for all these years, and like being around you people. You've taught me so much about living life, and I was so thankful to the man who, you know, gave me that prayer, which opened up the door to finding a God of my understanding that has enabled me to not feel so disgusting like I did when I was in that detox and prior. And I'll leave it there.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, and we'll open up the meeting for sharing now. You can come back in and share with Dan, as he kindly shared with you. And we'll go for about 3 minutes. So if I wave, you can think about start wrapping up then. Thanks.
Thanks, Lucky. Hi everyone, I'm Holly. I'm an addict.
Holly.
I'm also an alcoholic as well. Thank you so much for your chair related to a lot of what you said. Do you know what else I like? And I don't see it often, but with men. But also, we don't just, well, I can only talk for myself, but you know, we as well. We don't just recover from, you know, like drink and drugs and get sober from that, but we have emotional sobriety as well. And where I can see that you have emotion in your eyes, like you can actually feel today, and that's such a beautiful thing, isn't it? Because like for me, obviously trauma stopped me from feeling, that's part of my journey as well, but the alcohol and drugs numbed me and stopped me from feeling as well. And I'm nearly 2.5 years in, and only like the last fortnight I've started to actually have some feelings, because I've been quite numb. So I've had a really good journey so far, you know. Pink fluffy clouds, great, you know. But for a long time I would sit in meetings and look at other women crying, and like one of my, you know, like irritating defects, I'd be like, I'll get jealous. I'm like, why is that woman crying? Like, why can she cry and I can't? And I'll get jealous of people, and I've done that for nearly 2.5 years. But you know, I've just got to trust the process. Like, we're all different. We can't compare ourselves to other people. And yeah, a couple of weeks ago I started getting feelings. And yeah, because for me, I can't do life on life's terms, right? I can't handle my emotional nature without a mind-altering substance, a drink or a drug or a man or energy drinks or caffeine or shopping or food or crash diets, you know, like anything that changes how I feel. You know, I can't do my life without that until I started working this program. But yeah, like, you know, it's okay to get emotion, isn't it? It's okay to cry. And like, my eyes have filled up a little bit, and like, yeah, it will come when it's meant to come, innit? And yeah, it's just really nice knowing that we can feel today and actually sit with ourselves, sit with our head, sit with us, sit and just be. Sit and just be without needing to change how we feel. Sit in our actual feelings. Because for such a long time, that's you know, once upon a time, exactly where I am now was exactly where I wanted to be. And it's such a beautiful experience. I loved what you said about God as well. You know, God, what, are we some kind of cult? No, we're not. You know, but a lot of people think that, don't they? But like you said, it's of our own understanding. You know, I should have died a long time ago. You know, abuse would, you know, killed me. Sexual abuse would have killed me. My drinking and using would have killed me. Depression, suicide attempts, you know, like I should have been dead a long, long time ago. Something has kept me alive all this time. You know, something has kept me alive. So I'm a believer. But do you know what else is beautiful? Even though you was like, nah, I'm gonna go and have a drink, you know, you didn't. Like, you know, like keep coming back, because yeah, there is a beautiful way out. There's a beautiful way for us to live as well, and not just exist. You said exist. And yeah, I was just existing. I was like a brown paper bag blowing along in the wind. And then, you know, it would rain, and then I'd be in a puddle, and then a car would run over me, and I'd be this wet paper bag with holes in, you know, and then I'd dry out when the weather was dry, and then I'd get fucking run over again. Yeah, just blowing along, just smashed, thank you, just smashed to pieces. But, you know, I'm a 30p bag for life now. Like, do you know what I mean? By the way, I hope that tampon spliff was an unused one. Me and my thinking, I'm sat here thinking, God, what did he used to smoke? But but it's great that we can laugh today and all, isn't it? Yeah, but yeah, I'm on a life and death errand, I know that, and I'm really grateful, really lucky to be here, and I took an awful lot from what you said. And yeah, thank you for being honest and showing your true self to us, and owning, you know, owning your shit, owning your truth, the person who you used to be, in order to help all of us lot. Because, you know, I've taken a lot from that. From being on the receiving end of a nasty man, I've taken a lot from that, so thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
Holly.
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm an alcoholic. So I've done a fair few of these meetings, and I can wholeheartedly say that is the first time that I have welled up listening to a chair. There are many, many differences in our stories, but I could really feel the passion that you had behind you when speaking about what you put your mum through. And I'm really sorry to hear about the loss of your mum. That's hard. My mum is my best friend and has been for my whole life. And I put her through absolute hell. Not only am I an alcoholic, I have bipolar. I think that they come together a lot. So it made me giggle when you said about, you know, the night is young. I can do that for weeks when I'm manic. And it's got me into a lot of trouble. I once stole a double-decker bus in Canterbury. The police were very nice about it, actually. But I ended up in a psychiatric unit up in London. And it was one of these nice cushy ones. I had a job in the city at the time and they paid for it. And when I found out it was £1,000 a night to stay there, I was like, take me out of here and put me in the Ritz, because I'd much rather be there. But it did work. And I actually met someone there who was in recovery. I was still drinking when I was in the psych unit. But it introduced me to that idea that, you know, I was putting my mum through a lot. She used to panic all the time, answering the phone. I once went missing for 2 days, was reported missing to the police, and was found walking down Kilburn High Road barefoot with a bottle of vodka, and I'd slit my wrists at 2 a.m. You know, I did things that were very out of the norm, and my poor mother, for 10 years, worried so much about that. She never got to enjoy me being off at uni because she was terrified about me being off at uni, me doing whatever. And I'm only in my mid-20s now, and I couldn't do that to her forever. And I think a lot of people must look at me being so young in the rooms and be like, you can't be a proper alcoholic, you've not even done it all yet. I mean, I think I did it all in quite a short space of time, but it's something that I really appreciate today is that I don't worry my mum like I used to, and that I don't wake up and have 10 missed calls from her wondering where I am or what I've done. And listening to you really brought that home to me. It wasn't just me that went through that hell of being an addict. It was my whole family that did that. And it's really nice to not have that anymore. And I'm really pleased you got to offer your mum that too, in the end. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alice.
Thanks, Alice.
I'm Jay, I'm an addict.
Hello,
Jay.
Jay.
Hi, Joe.
Thanks for that, Dan. Going back to the emotion thing, I cry at Dragon's Den when I don't get the fucking... you know what I mean? So as far as the emotion goes, yeah, on their X Facts, they get a red note, I'll start crying. I think they should be, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm the oldest of 6, and so I'm supposed to be the responsible one, the one everyone looks up to, which unfortunately for a long time, none of them did. I was still building bridges with my younger sisters. My mum, we're like that again. My mum is She's stuck by me through thick and thin. And my mum is, she's as straight as a die. She's got letters after her name. She's a doctor, not a medical doctor. She's, do you know what I mean? And she stuck by me through thick and thin. I remember I was living on the streets in, I think it was Bournemouth or somewhere like that, and no one had heard from me for about 5 or 6 years. And she just remarkably, I don't know how, she turned up. And this was before the internet, before Facebook, so how she found me, I haven't got a clue. And anyway, the first thing I did was blag some money out of her, and she drove me to school. And we're good now, we're good. But she would always, if I don't make her a coffee, do you remember that time? Do you remember that time when you took me to school? You know what I mean? But yeah, my family, I'm still building bridges. My kids, unfortunately, I lost contact with. Unfortunately, with their mother, I was well into my addiction. My kids, I think, were 11 and 12. And I went round to pick them up. I was out in nut. She caught me in the toilet with a pin in my arm. And she said, in front of the 2 children, you've got to make a choice. You either take drugs or you see the kids. And like a fucking idiot, I went, well, that's easy. I'm on the gear. See you later. And that was, my son's now 38, my daughter's 36. And I haven't spoken a word to him since. Again, I'm glad Facebook's about now, because I'm sort of trying to make contact with him now. My daughter now and again messages me. My son, nah, he's washed his hands with me. But I've had another relationship since. I've got an 18-year-old daughter. She's driving me mad. If there is such a thing, the one good thing of me being an addict, my kids hate drugs. They hate it with a passion because they've seen what it's done to me. Yeah, so that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
My name's Darcy, and I'm an addict alcoholic.
Hi, Darcy.
Hi, Darcy.
Thank you, Dan. That was like, you're so humble. Like it takes a lot to get humble. I don't know many humble people, you know. I know a lot of humble people in these rooms that do this work. But outside of that, you know, there isn't many what I would class as humble people. You know, whether or not, I don't know why that is. But, you know, this really has taught me, and, you know, I see it all the time in the rooms. It teaches me how to have a moral compass. And that's something I didn't have drinking and using. I lost my moral compass. You know, for so long I tried to control drink and drugs. If you ask me what I am, I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter, I'm not a flighter. And I always was trying to beat addiction, and that was my problem. I needed to surrender. I didn't know how to surrender. Nobody had ever told me. All my life, everyone had said to me, Darcy, you know, you've got to, you fight for what you need. You know, you fight to get a job. You fight to be the best. Addiction is completely the opposite. We surrender to it. I had to surrender that I wasn't able to beat addiction. It's bigger than me, you know, and I suppose that's where God come in. You know, I had to believe in something bigger than myself. And now when I say it, I think, how insane. Like, you know, what, I thought I was the biggest person in the world. I mean, you know, if that doesn't show you what insanity is, I don't know what is. But, you know, I suffered, like, you know, it was just suffering. I was irritable, restless, discontent. You know, I was in all of my human defects. I was a people pleaser. I was selfish. I didn't have any integrity. That's what I lacked. And what happened is when I would drink, I'd do things that were shameful, that were really against my natural character. That made me feel so shameful about myself that when I would become sober again, the thought of what I had just done or who I'd hurt or, I don't know, just behaviour I would never do. I'd never do it sober. That was too much for me to deal with. So then I'd have to drink again. And I got on that hamster wheel, unfortunately. You know, this teaches us to be honest, and I have to be honest with myself. You know, I catch myself lying all the time. And I'm like, why have I just even said that? You know, like, I don't even know why I've just lied. But, you know, that's a behaviour, I think, that's actually left over perhaps from my, I don't know, is it left over from drinking? I don't know. But today I'm honest. I'm a very, very honest person. If I'm not honest, I suffer because I today have a conscience. I have God's conscience. No one needs to say to me, you've done wrong. I know I've done wrong. I feel it more than anyone. And yeah, that's what I've got. And today I've got internal peace. That because I'm integral, because I do what I say, I don't lie. I have pure thoughts most of the time. If I don't have pure thoughts, I have a program to get me straight onto my pure thoughts. So today, if you'd asked me when I came into these rooms and before I started working a program, before I started helping others, because I wasn't capable of helping anyone but myself, I would have said that I was full of love. I had no love inside me. I was in darkness and I didn't even know it. But today I am full of love. And this is a wonderful program and it's a gift. As you said, it's a gift. I'll leave it there.
Oh,
Thanks, Darcy.
Thank you.
John Addict.
Hello, John.
Yeah, thank you for that story. So glad I've got a bit of clean time behind me now, because if I was about a month in, I would have just been like, oh my God, mate, you know what I mean? His story, it's so sad, you know what I mean? Like, I can't cope. What have I put my family through? It'd all be about me. I'd be so remorseful. I'd feel so sorry for me. Do you know what I mean? But today I understand there's a reason you behave like that. There's a reason I behave like that, you know, and them feelings, you know, that you express to everyone, that's what I identify with everyone, about changing the way I feel. You know, that's the only thing I think anybody who's outside the rooms as well, if there's, whether they admit to being an addict or not, I think the only thing that everybody in life can identify, people, when you are an addict, is the part where you want to change the way you feel. Because it felt great. It felt great. You know, I think in the end, my addiction took me to a place where when I say, well, the problem with my addiction, it took me to a place in the end, I used every day because I felt shame, but I felt shame with myself, not everybody else, you know, and because that's the fear I carried inside, you know, and I woke up every day ashamed of what I'd done. You know, I was never really thought about everybody else. I didn't focus on them going, oh my God, I've upset my mum and dad. I've upset my son. I've upset someone else. I owe so-and-so. I think if I'm going to admit it openly, I think I woke up every morning and thought, God, I've let myself down. I feel terrible. How can I fix myself? Now can I fix others? Because again, you know, internally, I'm not interested in anyone else. I'm really not. You know, I don't know any of this, but there's only one thing that's going to make me feel good: change the way I feel. You know, and I get the expression now when people used to drink that and everyone would go, God, what was it like last night? Yeah, they was going, I was off my head, or I was out my head. I understand what that means now. Yeah, because that's what I was doing every day of my life. I was getting out of my head because I don't want to be in here. And what this program's taught me in here a hell of a lot is to stop thinking, you know, because that's dangerous. You know, like I can tell you funny stories about my thinking. I can tell you dangerous stories about my thinking. But what it's taught me in here now is to look forward, you know, look forward to the future, look forward to what's in front of me, not what's behind me, because there's so much emotion in that chair, you know, and like I say, if I went home and thought about just your chair tonight, I'd be a wreck. You know what I mean? I'd be in a corner like fucking crying and like fucking not being able to get over it and everything. But I can't be like that anymore because I've taught myself not to be, you know, to have that thought pattern anymore because, yeah, I regret the past, but I don't carry any, you know, I don't carry anything from it anymore, you know, because that's danger, you know, that's dangerous. What I realise now is I've got to get well, I've got to look forward, I've got to help others, I've got to be there for my family, I make a lifetime of amends, you know, especially to close family. I love what you share about your children. That's amazing. To me, that's probably the most amazing, most amazing part of the story I've heard through that. You know, the gift of you giving back to loved ones. I mean, that's probably what does get me when I come into rooms, you know, when people reconnect with family. But even if you don't reconnect with family, you've got acceptance around it, you understand why. You know, you understand what you put them through. You know, the problem with I have in here sometimes is I forget that I'm getting recovered, and I always think the people, my loved ones around me, are at the same level that I am. But they don't do what I do, you know. They don't have the opportunity to learn, you know, to come in here and, you know, understand. So I need to be careful sometimes, thinking, well, I'm all right. But what about the people, like, the people I treated? You know what I mean? I have to just make sure, and that's why my daily amends is to calm myself down, not to shout it from the rooftops. You know what I mean? You know, I'm free, I'm happy, I'm joyous. I'll say it in here with all you guys, but I can't chuck it in people's faces that I've, you know, destroyed it all their lives. You know, then that's where like someone mentioned earlier, that's where the humility comes into it. God, being humble, mate. What a word, mate. Who would ever thought that? I mean, oh, I'm humble. You know what I mean? That's just like, I used to hate people saying that. That's just, you know, everything I hear in here now, what I should be, out there, I just look at people and go, what a tosser, mate. Do you know what I mean? You know, just, really, yeah, do me a favour, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like that. But that, because that's, again, that's an internal fear still, though. That's me just being someone, what to do? I'm pushing people away, and inside, that's who I want to be. And today I need to learn, you know, that, you know, I've got to be a better person than I was in the past. But, you know, I can only do that by, you know, being, you know, just being and learning life and just being here today and trying my best. But honestly, it's such a wonderful story. It's just everyone sharing it. Anyone who comes in here, I've got time for because they've got the courage to come in these rooms. You know, I've always said this and I'll end it here. You don't come in here because you're in a good place. You come in here because you've broken, or you internally, or you've broken something out there externally that you love. You don't come and knock on that door and go, any chance I could come and give this up, mate. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You only come in here because you've had enough. Yeah. And you're dying. And you don't want to live no more. And that's it. So, but so grateful. I really am. So grateful to hear you speak tonight. I'm so grateful to be around you wonderful people. So I'll leave it there.
Oh, thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, I'm Mickey. I'm an addict.
Hello, Mickey.
Mickey.
Lucky, thanks for taking the meeting. Dan, thank you for that wonderful chair. I really enjoyed it. And sorry about your mum and your uncle. These things happen, but much easier to deal with it in sobriety. You're being clean and sober than not, obviously. Yeah, and it's like been shared, you know, and I get a sense of it sometimes more than others, but I'm really grateful to be here because, and I've shared it many times at many meetings, this fellowship saved my life. And that's not to be over dramatic, that's just a fact. And further to that, also by working a program and doing this stuff, I get a life worth living. Because when I look back at my old life compared to now, I mean, it's day and night, it's chalk and cheese stuff, you know. And it's funny, you talked about your family and, you know, the situation with your mum when you got into recovery, and it kind of reminded me, and that's part of the reason I come to these meetings, to be reminded, because my disease, my brain, the bullshit factory I talked about previously in other meetings, I'll forget if I'm not careful. If I don't work this stuff, I'll forget what it was like. I'll forget about the carnage. And yeah, I can remember, you talked about asking for help. I mean, isn't that the bane of every addict's life, asking for help? You know, it's kind of, I knew I needed help, but to ask for help or to come to these meetings where I knew God was, oh, hell no, I'll sort it myself. And that nearly killed me. You know, what happened to me was on the 12th of December 2015, this was the second time my family intervened, so it was a second intervention. So I was using for 3 days. My wife had left and took our daughter for good reason. She'd had enough. And before she left, God bless her, she made a phone call. So I'm in the middle of it, I'm at it, I'm using, and then there's a knock on the door. Finally, the knock on the door that we're all waiting for that never comes, it actually came. My mum's at the door, my dad's at the door, my brother's at the door, my sister. Really? And I saw the look on their faces, and like you said, you know, my dad's not a violent man, he's just like a typical, stereotypical, strong Irish man. He's not a wallflower, he's not behind the door at saying his piece. And I just saw a look on that man's face, and it was beyond anger, it was beyond any kind of, it was just fear, like an ashen-faced look. My mum's crying. My brother and sister are just looking at me with disgust. Look at you, look what you've done. You know what I mean? Why can't you stop? That's one thing people out there in the normal world do not understand. And I don't expect them to. Why would they? Because they're not addicts themselves. They would never understand it. And I saw the look on that man's face, and it kind of, even in the midst of using, it kind of had an effect on me. And bless him, he said to me, I've had enough of this. This is done now. I'm finished. You'll go into a meeting tomorrow and I'm going to take you. And I did. My first meeting, I was a 40-year-old man with my dad sat to my right-hand side, because if he hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have gone. The fear would have been too much. And I sat in that meeting. I've never been so scared in my entire life, which sounds odd now. But, you know, all them years of using, the fear and the kind of, my mind was just, like I've shared previously in meetings, my just emotionally, like you discussed it, emotionally broken, just not well. You know, people talk a lot these days about mental health and stuff, but I sometimes I think what we deal with, it is a mental health issue, you know, and that's not to belittle it or anything like that. It's just how I feel about it. But fortunately for me, and this is where the good news, you know, I went to that meeting and I found people like, you know, you talked about your sponsor. I found people who were shouting from the rooftops, you know, about how it was possible to not drink and use ever again if you decided you didn't want to, and you were willing to take certain points in order to do that. They made it clear from the beginning. It was in my hands. There were certain things I had to do, and if I did them, I'd be okay. And if I didn't do them, you know, you talked about it's a bit like people think this like a cult in here. It's actually not, because in cults everyone does what they're told. In here it's a little bit different. But you know, I kind of became a cult. I didn't care. Cult, I don't care. Bring it on. Tell me what I've got to do. You know, and I've shared many times when I walked into that meeting, shivering and shaking and fearful on the 13th of December 2015. If someone had walked up to me and said, "Listen, we've got a technique here. It's 100 grand. You can pay in installments if you want, but we have a technique to stop you drinking and using drugs ever again. £100,000, take out a loan." I'd have signed. I would have signed, you know. Unfortunately, with that desire, that desperate, acknowledge, that kind of desperation for a way out, that sort of saw me through to the point where I got a sponsor. I got a sponsor at my second meeting. Met him, went through what had to be done, and I'm still doing it today, what has to be done, because like I said a minute ago, my life depends on it. And you know, just to finish on this, you know, the life I get now, I wasn't living before. Like, you know, I've shared many times, it was an existence. I didn't know it. I thought it's how everybody lived. It turns out it wasn't. You know, I have boundaries today. I wouldn't go as far as to say I love myself. That's a bit much. I respect myself. I like myself. I can set boundaries. I'm a better dad, I'm a better husband, I'm a better son. All the things in my life are just improved. They're just stratospheric, basically, you know, and it's just a direct result of doing this stuff. So like I share all the time, every week, if you're new to this stuff, just do what we've done. If you want what we've got, get a sponsor, get on with it. And, you know, I get one thing you will get from this program, and I will finish on this, is I got a level of peace and serenity and happiness I didn't know was possible to get, and it's priceless, you know. And that might sound strong and a bit woo and a bit whoa, whatever. It's an actual fact for me. It's been my experience, you know, and if I'd have known, I'd have come in here years ago, but everyone's journey's different. But Dan, thank you for doing service and carrying the message. It's good to see you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mickey.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lucky, grateful recovered addict.
Lucky.
Hi, Lucky.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I've wrapped the meeting up now, and you know, I reckon I've known you over 10 years, haven't I? It's got to be something like that. I remember, first met you at Cushty, and in the meetings, and I remember when I come into the meetings, I remember thinking, "What's this all about?" You know. And he walked up to me and he went, "Oh, how are you?" I knew him from before. You know, we used to work together, and he went to me, "All right, chatting away and this, that, and the other." He said, "You need to sort yourself out." I went, "Yeah, of course." I thought I had a problem with vodka. That's the truth. I thought vodka was the problem. And he said to me, it's not the vodka, it's you." I went, what's a bit? He said, "You need to change." No, he said, "You need to change." I thought, bloody cheat. And anyway, I thought he's wrong about that, but that don't matter, I'll stay. And what I learned in here really was about, you know, the type of personality I've got and that selfishness and self-centeredness. And, you know, I realised that it took years for me to sort of thaw out and change and look at life differently, and look at myself differently. And, you know, I realised that it was all about pleasure. It was non-stop pleasure. Everything with and this for me is a transference from pleasure to purpose. So, you know, I've got a purpose in my life today. It's got some meaning, because all that other stuff that I did to get in here, I had the car crash after the car crash after the car crash. And then I'm very, very lucky to be alive, is the truth, what I've done to myself, what I did to myself. And the nightmare stories, you know, that I've gone through and experienced as a result of what I've done, you know, and then I had to get honest, accountable, be responsible. They're things I just don't know how to do. I can't tell the truth, you know what I mean? Before I got here, if my life depended on it, I don't think I could have told the truth. And that's the reality of it. And, you know, I had to get honest with myself, honest with others. But I genuinely have, as a result of coming here, seriously, I've learned to love myself. You can't take liberties with me no more. Do you know what I mean? I don't take them with myself. So no one else has got any chance. I used to knock about the worst company you could imagine. All out. I'm not knocking them, I'm the same, right? Alcoholics, addicts, bang on it. It's just about, it's crash, bang, wallop, no consequences. Don't even think about the consequences of what we're doing to ourselves or others. And I've come in and I've thought, it's over. Seriously, it's over. That madness, that drama, that you know, I don't live like that. My life is simple today, do you know what I mean? And I think that where I used to think I was rich because I had money in the bank, I think I'm rich today because I don't need money. I don't need money for drink. I don't need money for drugs. I don't need money for gambling. I used to smoke 60 fags a day. I don't smoke. Do you know what I mean? It's over. It's over. It's finished. I don't want it no more. I prefer this. I like, you know, having a life that's got a meaning and purpose and trying to help other people. It makes me feel good about the person I am. And, you know, you can't lie to yourself in the mirror, can you? You look in the mirror, you cannot lie to yourself. I can lie to anyone else, but I can't lie to the guy in the mirror. And I like the guy in the mirror. And the truth was, when I got here, I didn't like the guy in the mirror, but I didn't even know that. You know what I mean? I've learned, it took me a long time to work out what was really going on. But, you know, I've heard you do some amazing chairs over the years, and it's always lovely to see you. Anyway, I'll finish it there, but thanks very much.
Thank you, Lucky.
Thank you.
Lucky.
Okay. You may have heard talk of a sponsor this evening. If anyone is prepared to act as a sponsor, please raise your hand. Okay, and to prove the recovery rooms, the guide to recovery works, will anyone with over 50 days of recovery, please raise your hand. And anyone who's over 1 year's continuous sobriety, please leave your hand up. That's great. I'll now hand the meeting over to Darcy, Literature Secretary.
Thank you, Lucky. Hi, everyone. So my name is Darcy. If you're within your first 100 days, you get a recovery rooms guide to recovery. I'd recommend it. Yeah, it definitely supports us along with these rooms, and it's a wonderful programme. Yeah, wish you all good on your journey.
Thanks, Darcy.
Oh, thanks, Darcy. I'd like to thank all the people who did service in the meeting this evening, as well as everyone who's attended and made the meeting possible. And finally, thanks to our chair, Dan. Thanks, Dan. And finally, I'd just like to end the meeting with our closing reading. Please let God, as I understand God, guide me in all and live in the present moment with a heart full of gratitude for all I have. And thanks very much for a wonderful meeting, everyone. And we hope to see you all again next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucky.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Yes.
Thanks.